My stepmother faked my dad having a medical emergency just to trap me at the hospital. When I realized it was all a lie to guilt me into paying their bills again, I told my dad, "What are you gonna do, ground me?" and walked out. It happened at Sunday dinner, the night everything finally snapped. My name is Helena Harper. I'm 36 years old. I live in Cedar Falls, Iowa, with my 2 adopted kids, Sam and Gracie. Dinner had barely started when my stepmother, Darlene, made her move. She stabbed a fork into her salad, tilted her head toward me, and said with a smirk, "It's really something, you know. Taking in those kinds of kids. Better woman than me, I guess." The room went quiet. My hands curled around my water glass. Sam was busy poking peas around his plate, and Gracie was humming under her breath, completely oblivious to the slap Darlene had just thrown. I forced a smile. "They're my kids, Darlene. Same as anyone's." Across the table, my stepsister Diana snorted into her wine glass. "Maybe if you could remember to pay your rent on time, you'd have the energy to raise them properly too." I blinked. My chest tightened. For the past 3 months, I had been helping Diana cover her spa business losses, silent loans, never repaid, while juggling 2 bakeries, a mortgage, and 2 kids. And now, she had the nerve to throw my late rent into my face, as if my kindness was a weakness. I didn't say a word. I just pushed my chair back and stood. "What, you're leaving?" Darlene asked, sounding almost amused. I didn't answer. I walked out, slow and steady, down the front steps, across the gravel driveway, into my car. I sat there staring at the steering wheel, feeling the buzz of my phone vibrate against my leg. It buzzed again. And again. 43 missed calls by the time the engine finally turned over. I didn't pick up a single one. Driving through town, headlights flashing past in blurs, I couldn't stop the memories from flooding back. Birthday parties where I stayed up all night baking cakes none of them remembered. Graduation gifts I spent my bonus checks on. Mortgage payments I made for my father when his second marriage turned rocky. Every time they needed something, they found me. The responsible one. The steady one. Love, they said. Love meant sacrifice. Love meant showing up. But somewhere along the way, love had gotten twisted into obligation. Sacrifice had become expected. And if I ever faltered, if I ever hesitated, it wasn't just disappointment I got back. It was cruelty, as natural as breathing to them. Somewhere between the 3rd stoplight and the turnoff to my neighborhood, I realized something. Love doesn't justify exploitation. It never did. It never would. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the buzzing had stopped. Silence. Blessed, aching silence. I leaned back against the seat, closed my eyes, and smiled for the first time all day. They could call all they wanted. I wasn't answering anymore. Back then, it used to feel like a compliment when they called me the strong one. Now I see it for what it was, a warning. After I left home, I built a life from scratch. No safety nets, no family loans, no second chances. Just me, a tiny 1-bedroom apartment above a pizza place in downtown Cedar Falls, and the stubborn idea that if I worked hard enough, things would get better. They did. I started with a single bakery, Harper's Hearth. Organic, homemade, nothing fake. It was rough in the beginning, late nights, sore wrists, bank accounts that barely stayed out of the red. But people came. Word spread. 1 store turned into 2, 2 into 5, 5 into a whole chain stretched across 4 states. Eco-friendly, employee-owned, profitable. Not that my family cared about how I made it. To them, I was just a success story waiting to be tapped. The first ask came easy enough. My stepmother wanted to open a cafe. Just a little thing, she said. A dream she'd never been brave enough to chase. I wrote the check. No questions asked. Then it was Diana's turn. She needed help clearing her student loans. Stress was making her sick, she said. She couldn't live until it was handled. So I drained my savings account and sent her the money. Later, when my half-brother Nick ran up thousands at bars and pawn shops, it was my phone that rang. "Please, Helena," he slurred one night. "One more favor. You're the only one who cares." And every time, every single time, I said yes. Because if I didn't, who would? It didn't matter that Darlene's cafe failed within the first year because she refused to show up before noon. It didn't matter that Diana dropped out of grad school and blew through her loan payoff with a spiritual sabbatical across Thailand. It didn't even matter that Nick relapsed less than 2 months after rehab. They had all failed. And somehow, that was still my fault. When I finally stopped handing out blank checks, the whispers started. Helena's changed. She's selfish now. She thinks she's better than us. No one ever said it to my face. They didn't have to. Every ignored call, every cold shoulder at Christmas, every nasty little comment at family gatherings said it loud and clear. I was useful when I was giving. I was loved when I was paying. Anything less, and I was a disappointment. I used to lie awake at night, wondering what was wrong with me. Why couldn't I just be more patient? More generous? Why couldn't I carry a little more, give a little more, bend a little further? It took me way too long to see it. They raised me to believe that being capable meant being responsible for everyone else's failures. If I had money, it wasn't mine. It was theirs by right. If I had success, it wasn't luck or work, it was a debt waiting to be collected. If I had a life, it was on loan, and they could demand it back whenever they pleased. But not anymore. The first time I said no out loud, it felt wrong. Like a betrayal. Like dropping a glass and watching it shatter across the floor. Now, sitting here on my porch with Gracie's crayons scattered across the table and Sam's sneakers abandoned on the lawn, it feels like breathing for the first time in years. I'm done carrying lives that were never mine to save. I built this life alone. And I'll protect it the same way. It happened during one of the biggest meetings of my life. I was sitting at the long glass conference table at Green Harvest Investments, flipping through projections for a franchise expansion. The kind of deal that could take Harper's Hearth from Midwest famous to national. My phone buzzed once in my pocket. Then again. Then again. I ignored it. I had to. I was presenting slides, answering questions, trying to look like someone who wasn't secretly one call away from a family crisis at any given moment. When the meeting finally wrapped, I stepped into the hall, checked my phone, and felt my stomach knot. 7 missed calls. All from Darlene. Before I could think better of it, I called her back. She answered on the first ring. Helena. Finally. What's wrong? I asked, already bracing for it. She didn't even pretend to ease into it. It's Diana. She got fired from the spa. Again. She's struggling. She needs help covering rent this month. Maybe next month too, depending. I stared at the conference room doors, still slightly ajar, hearing muffled laughter from the executives inside. Darlene, I said carefully. I'm in the middle of something. I can't talk about this right now. You can't talk about your family? Her voice sharpened. After everything we've done for you? I closed my eyes. Counted to 3. She kept going. We stood by you when you adopted those kids. We told people you were a good person. We. No. The word was so small it almost didn't sound like mine. There was a long pause. What did you say? She demanded. I said no, I repeated, voice steadier this time. I can't help Diana. Darlene inhaled sharply, like I'd slapped her across the face. She's your sister, Helena. She's family. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't offer conditions or apologies like I always had before. I just pressed end call and slid my phone back into my pocket. The whole thing had taken less than 2 minutes. But standing there under the flickering fluorescent lights, it felt like the biggest thing I had ever done. That quiet no echoed louder than any screaming match we'd ever had. It wasn't just a refusal. It was a severing. And somewhere deep down, I knew there was no going back. Not this time. By the time I got home that night, my phone looked like it was ready to melt. 38 missed calls. 24 voicemails. A wall of texts so thick, I gave up trying to scroll to the top. At first, it was guilt. Darlene, we're so disappointed in you. Diana, you're abandoning your own family. Darlene again, after all we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Then came the desperation. Diana, please, Helena. I'll pay you back. I promise. Darlene, you'll regret this. You'll regret it when you need us. Nick, my half-brother, stayed silent, as usual. no doubt watching from the sidelines, waiting to see who would come out ahead. I didn't answer any of it. I turned my phone face down, made macaroni and cheese for Sam and Gracie, helped with homework, tucked them into bed. For the first time in months, maybe years, I lived a night of my life without them, my so-called family, breathing down my neck. And then the final blow hit. A text from Darlene, around midnight. "Darlene, your father's in the ER. He's asking for you. Please, don't do this." I sat there staring at the message for a long time. My father. Harold Harper. The man who taught me how to change a tire, how to balance a checkbook, and how to apologize for existing. If he was hurt, I had to go. Right? Blood is thicker than pride. That's what they always said. So I went. I left the kids with the neighbor, drove through empty streets under a cold, clear Iowa sky, and rushed to Mercy General Hospital. When I got there, the nurse at the desk frowned. "ER? No, he's been discharged. He's in observation. No major medical issue." Confused, I followed her directions down the hall to room 204. There he was, sitting up in bed, watching a football game on mute. Perfectly fine. Darlene was perched on the chair beside him, face pale, makeup smudged. She jumped up the second she saw me. "There you are," she said breathlessly. "Thank God you came." I didn't sit. Didn't speak. Just crossed my arms and waited. Dad looked at me, his mouth pulling into a thin line. "Nice of you to show up after everything." "Everything?" I asked, voice hollow. "You walking away from this family," he said, shaking his head. "It's killing your mother." "She's not my mother," I said flatly. Silence. Darlene fluttered closer, wringing her hands. "He's been under so much stress, Helena. Seeing you tonight, it would mean the world." "No," I cut in. "You don't get to do this." Darlene blinked. "Do what?" I took a step closer to the bed. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear myself over it. "You don't get to use fake emergencies to drag me back in. You don't get to play the dying parent card when the only thing dying around here is your control over me." Dad's face darkened. "Watch your mouth, young lady." I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "What are you going to do? Ground me?" His mouth snapped shut. I looked at Darlene, at the hospital wristband she was fiddling with like a talisman. At my father, who had no IVs, no monitors beeping beside him, just a remote and a bag of chips on the side table. This wasn't a medical emergency. This was a control emergency. And they had lost. "I came," I said quietly. "Now I'm leaving." I turned on my heel and walked out. They didn't call after me. They didn't chase me. They just sat there, stunned, watching me disappear down the hall. When the elevator doors closed, I leaned against the back wall and exhaled. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just breathed. For the first time in my life, I had seen through every lie, every manipulation, every twisted version of love they had tried to sell me. And I wasn't buying anymore. I knew they wouldn't go quietly. By the next afternoon, the real retaliation started. It wasn't just angry texts anymore. It wasn't voicemails full of crying and accusations. It was war. First, I got a panicked call from Avery, my operations manager. She sounded rattled. "Helena, you need to see this." Somehow, Darlene had gotten hold of the emails for a few of our franchise partners, and she was using them. Spamming them with claims that I was unstable, irresponsible, untrustworthy. "She's abandoned her father," one message read. "If she can't take care of family, how can you trust her to take care of business?" I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, feeling my stomach churn. They weren't just trying to hurt me personally anymore. They were coming for the life I had built. The one thing they had never been able to touch before. By the next day, it escalated further. Darlene showed up at my house. I heard the screaming before I even made it to the front window. She was standing in my driveway in a bright pink trench coat, waving her arms like a deranged flag. "You selfish little brat," she shrieked. "After everything we've done for you. After every sacrifice. You owe us. UOWEUS. The neighbors peeked through their blinds. A couple across the street stood frozen on their porch, groceries forgotten in their arms. I didn't open the door. I didn't even step outside. Instead, I picked up the phone and called the security company. By the time they arrived, Darlene was still screaming, spit flying, fists pounding on the hood of my car. They escorted her off the property, firm but professional. She held the whole way down the driveway. Promised that I would regret this. That I would be alone forever. That my children would turn against me, just like I had turned against her. I watched from behind the curtain, my heart beating slow and steady. I wasn't scared anymore. I was done being scared. That night, I upgraded everything, the alarm system, the cameras, the locks. I blocked every number tied to them. Changed my email addresses. Had my lawyer send cease and desist letters to Darlene, Diana, and Nick. I scrubbed them from my life, root to branch. And when the dust finally settled, there was something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the fake kind, not the uneasy silence of waiting for the next demand, the next emergency, the next favor. Real peace. The kind that comes when you finally close a door and lock it. They weren't getting back in. Not now. Not ever. It was about a week later, on a Thursday night, when someone knocked on my door. Not a pounding, not screaming. Just a knock. I checked the camera feed before even thinking about opening it. It was Chase. My half-brother. He stood there in a wrinkled hoodie and jeans, hands jammed deep into his pockets. No car in the driveway, he must have walked from the bus stop 2 miles down the road. For a minute, I debated not answering. But something about the way he kept shifting his weight, head down, made me hesitate. I cracked the door open, just enough to hear him. "Helena," he said, voice low. "Can I come in?" I didn't say anything for a second. Then I stepped back and let him. He shuffled inside, glancing around like he half expected Darlene or Diana to leap out of the shadows. We ended up sitting across from each other at the kitchen table, the same table where Sam had done his homework that afternoon and Gracie had spilled pink lemonade. Chase looked rough. Dark circles under his eyes. A scratch on his knuckle that hadn't been cleaned properly. He licked his lips like he wasn't sure where to start. "They turned on me too," he said finally. "After you cut them off." I stayed quiet. "They said if I really loved the family, I'd handle you," he went on, voice bitter. "Said it was my job to fix you." He gave a dry, humorless laugh. "And when I wouldn't, well. Guess they decided I was useless too." He rubbed his palms against his jeans, nervous. "They threw me out, Helena. Told me I was a traitor." His voice cracked on the last word, and he swallowed hard. Just like that. Like I never existed unless they needed something. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "I guess," he trailed off, shaking his head. "I guess you were right. About all of it." I didn't rush in to make him feel better. I just let the silence stretch, heavy but clean. He cleared his throat. "I'm not asking for money. I swear." He glanced up at me, eyes wide and desperate. I didn't know where else to go. I don't got anybody else." I studied him for a long moment. This was Chase, the charming screw-up, the golden boy who always talked his way out of consequences. The one I used to cover for when he blew rent money on beer and tattoos. But tonight? He wasn't charming. He wasn't spinning stories. He was just a scared, broken man standing in the ruins of a family that had used him up and tossed him aside. I exhaled slowly and stood up. Walked to the cupboard. Pulled down a second mug. Poured him coffee. He blinked at it, like he wasn't sure it was real. "You want to stay for a bit?" I asked, voice even. He nodded fast, eyes glassy. I didn't promise him anything more. But in that moment, it felt like something fragile and honest had cracked open between us. Maybe not forgiveness. Not yet. But something close. Something better. About a month later, the next round started. Right on schedule. I was sorting invoices at the bakery when my phone buzzed, a notification from my old email account, the one I barely checked anymore. Subject line, urgent, family emergency. I didn't even need to open it to know. But I did anyway. It was from Darlene, of course. Long and dramatic, the kind of email you had to scroll through twice just to believe. She claimed there were unpaid hospital bills from Dad's heart episode. That they were about to lose their house. That Diana was facing eviction. That the family was falling apart without me. I stared at the screen, stone-faced. Because I already knew the truth. Dad's heart episode had been diagnosed as basic stress. No medical bills except a routine overnight observation fee, already paid by insurance. Diana wasn't about to be evicted. She had just posted photos from a weekend in Aspen on her social media, hot tubs, champagne brunches, matching fluffy robes with her new boyfriend. Real subtle. Another lie. Another guilt trip. Another attempt to yank me back into the mud. They sent more messages over the next week. New ones every few days. Each one more desperate than the last. You're the only one who can help. Don't punish innocent people. We're your family, Helena. Blood is thicker than water. And every time I did the same thing. Nothing. No reply. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. It drove them crazy. I could tell by how the emails got angrier, messier, more frantic. The quieter I stayed, the louder they got. It used to be that silence made me feel guilty. Like I was doing something wrong by protecting my peace. Now, it felt like armor. I had spent 30 years being the family fixer, the emotional sponge, the one who cleaned up after everyone else's messes. Not anymore. They could lie. They could scramble. They could rot in the wreckage they built. I wasn't coming back. I closed the email. Turned my phone off. And went back to kneading dough by hand, letting the rhythm of it wash away whatever tiny flicker of guilt still tried to spark inside me. Some fires just needed to burn out. And this one was long overdue. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at one of the bakery locations in Davenport, training a new assistant manager, when I saw her, Darlene, standing in line at the register. For a second, I thought I was seeing things. She wore big sunglasses, a scarf over her hair like she was auditioning for a bad soap opera. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a casual drop-in. It was a setup. She ordered a coffee she clearly didn't want, pretending to browse the pastry case. I stayed behind the counter, arms folded, waiting. When her drink was ready, she picked it up and made a slow, deliberate beeline for me. "Helena," she said in a voice just loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "Please. Can we talk?" I kept my arms crossed. "No." She took a step closer, blinking hard like she was trying to summon tears. "I made mistakes," she said. "We all made mistakes. But we're family. We can fix this." A few customers looked over, curious. I saw one of my regulars, an older man who came in every Tuesday for cinnamon rolls, narrow his eyes at her. "Good. Let them see. Let them hear." I stepped out from behind the counter, meeting her in the middle of the floor. "You want to talk?" I said, voice steady. "Fine." Her face brightened for a split second before I continued. "Let's talk about every favor you begged for that turned into a bottomless pit," I said calmly. "Every business you wanted me to fund, every debt you expected me to cover, every time you stood at a family gathering and humiliated me for not doing enough." Her smile faltered. "Let's talk about how you changed my kids' cruise trip behind my back. How you decided they weren't worthy enough because they weren't easy to control. Let's talk about how you faked a medical emergency just to get me to crawl back into your circus." Darlene's mouth opened and closed, her face going red. A few more customers pretended not to listen, but I saw the way they slowed down, how they leaned in just slightly. "You don't want me to fix the family," I said, my voice dropping lower. "You want me to fix your life. The one you broke all by yourself." She tried to reach for my arm, but I stepped back. "You lost the right to ask me for anything the day you decided my only value was in what I could give you," I finished. "There's nothing left here for you. Nothing." Before she could reply, I turned to the assistant manager behind the counter. "Call security," I said, loud enough for the whole bakery to hear. Darlene's face crumpled. "You're making a mistake," she hissed as security approached. "You'll regret this." I smiled, cold and clean. "I already regretted giving you so many chances." Security walked her out, firm but polite. The bell above the door jingled as it swung shut behind her. And just like that, the last tie was cut. For real this time. 1 year later, my life is so quiet it almost feels like a dream. The bakery chain is thriving. We opened 2 more locations last fall, and a third is set to open this spring. Sam made honor roll. Gracie won her first art contest at school. At night, when I lock up the house and check on the kids, I stand in the doorway and just breathe. No screaming voicemails. No guilt-drenched texts. No lurking sense that at any moment someone might demand another piece of me. It's not flashy, this new life. It's not loud. It's just good. A few months back, on a whim, I wrote my story down. Not with names or revenge in mind, just the truth. Posted it anonymously on a support forum about toxic families. I didn't think anyone would care. But they did. Thousands of people read it. Thousands commented. Some said it gave them courage to draw their own lines. Some said it felt like someone had finally put their own unspoken pain into words. I read every single comment. Every single one. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel alone. I didn't feel crazy. I didn't feel selfish. I felt understood. Of course, the past has a way of trying to claw its way back in. Last week, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, I got an email from Diana. No greeting. No apology. Just 5 words, "You should be ashamed of yourself." Attached was a GoFundMe link. Apparently, she's being evicted. Again. I stared at the email for a long moment. Then I smiled. A real, easy smile. And I deleted it without answering. Because the truth is simple now. I don't owe them explanations. I don't owe them justifications. I don't owe them anything. Blood isn't thicker than betrayal. And love isn't real when it only exists in the moments you're useful. I tucked my phone away, poured a glass of lemonade, and stepped onto the back porch. Sam and Gracie were running barefoot through the damp grass, chasing bubbles from the old plastic wand they found in the garage. Their laughter floated up into the gray sky like tiny fireworks. I leaned back in my chair, pulled a blanket over my lap, and let it all sink in. This is my family. The one I chose. The one I built. The one that chose me back. And no matter what storms come knocking at my door, they'll find it locked tight. Not from anger. Not from bitterness. From peace. The kind of peace you can only find when you finally stop fighting for a seat at a table where you were never truly welcome. The kind of peace you earn. And God, it's worth everything.